Argentino, USA. And I just wanted to hop here for a minute and talk about something I thought was interesting that happened to me yesterday. And maybe you might find this interesting too, maybe not. Either way, if you want to help this channel survive, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. We need help with the algorithm. So, yesterday I was out walking my Dogo Argentino dogs, as I do every single day. And we were hiking through the forest. And it's late December here. It's almost New Year's Eve. I don't actually know the date, believe it or not. I think it's something like the 29th or maybe the 30th of December. And here in Northern Virginia, it is roughly going between, it's bouncing back and forth temperature-wise between like 40 and 70, believe it or not. So I am walking the dogs, right? And Zeus, for those of you that are interested, is scheduled for reconstructive surgery on the 19th of January. And they're going to do a total knee replacement for him to try to fix the problem with his ligament being torn, which is a very serious injury in case you don't know. It is not like a human where it's kind of like a minor thing. With a dog, it's pretty serious. A lot of people end up putting their dogs down rather than doing the surgery because it's very expensive. We were quoted like $6,000 for the surgery, and then rehab's going to probably be another $3,000. Anyway, neither here nor there. We were walking, and I had leaned down to take some photos of Emma, and one of my leashes was kind of covered up by the leaf fall because we're in the forest, there's lots of leaves, and only part of it was showing, and the part that was showing happened to be pitch black. And she saw it, and she immediately backed up, did challenge tail. She thought it was a snake. And as far as I know, she's never actually encountered a snake in the wild. Now, Zarina has. Zarina has gone after snakes under the porch on a number of occasions. She barks. She doesn't like snakes. She wants to kill them. Emma had the opposite reaction. Emma wanted no part of what she thought was a snake and was really unhappy and uncomfortable with the situation, which, of course, because I knew it wasn't a snake, it was funny to me. But I was actually really glad that she had that problem because Zarina's been bitten by a snake before, but Zarina's been bitten by a copperhead. Now, if you don't know, generally dogs do okay with copperhead bites. It's not the greatest thing, but generally they can recover from a copperhead bite. Rattlesnake bites are completely different. They don't do well and usually will die if they get bitten by a rattlesnake. But apparently wolves have passed on a tolerance to copperhead venom. Dogs are really curious generally, and they tend to investigate with their faces because they're all nose, right? So she wanted to investigate because she obviously didn't smell a snake, but in her eyes it looked like a snake because it was black and it was roughly snake sized. And when I grabbed it and held it up to her so that I could show her it wasn't a snake, she still wanted nothing to do with it. She was like, nah, I'm having none of that. So I thought that was just a very interesting reaction, completely different than her mother, who her mother is like, I'm going to get that snake and kill it. And Emma's like, I want nothing to do with what I think is a snake. I'm out. Certain animal behaviors, like reaction to animals that would normally hurt them, are actually genetic. So one of the things that's interesting about a llama is if you show a llama a tiger skin, whether it's real or imaginary, the llamas will show fear, even if they've never encountered a tiger in the wild, because they're genetically programmed. And how does that actually happen? Instinct is actually a genetic response to past fear and trauma that has happened that was so important to the survival of the animal that it encoded it in its DNA. And so that's what instinct really is a reaction to trauma that's happened in the past to an ancestor. And she had no desire to be caught up with that snake. She was like, nah, I'm not into it. I'm not having it. I don't want anything to do with it. Now, interestingly, last year, was it last year? It was quarantine year. Gosh, the years are just blending together. They're blending together. I don't know what year is what. Quarantine year, the year we were locked down, Zarina got bitten by a copperhead early in the spring. And we ended up taking her to an emergency vet, and they're like, yeah, she was bitten. Yeah, it's fine. She'll be fine. Give her some Benadryl. And that's actually what they generally do with copperhead bites, at least in my area for the vet. They check to make sure that no blood vessel has been damaged, and then they're like, here, here's an anti-inflammatory, go to town with that. So now what Zarina had when she was bitten by the copperhead was puffy paw. Like, her paw from really where her leg joined her torso all the way down turned into like a summer sausage. It was huge. It was 3 times the size that it should have been. And they did give us some anti-inflammatories and some antibiotics, and we did do an x-ray just to make sure she didn't have a fracture, all of which was super cheap because we went to the 24-hour emergency vet, I'd like to tell you. And she was fine. She walked it off. It took her a little while, but has not in any way quelled her desire to kill snakes. Emma, on the other hand, is like, nah, I want nothing to do with that. I'm not having it. And like I said, when I held up the leash, she backed up, and she was very interested. She was extremely alert, but in a concerned way, not in a I'm going to kill it way, in a I'm going to see if this thing is going to take me down kind of way. And I just thought that was cool, because one of the things that I find interesting about breeding dogs, and one of the reasons I got into breeding Dogo Argentinos, is because you can affect so much of what that adult dog turns out to be based on the things that you expose the puppy to when it's young, especially socialization, but also novel experiences. So yeah, it's so true. She wanted no part of the snakes. She was not into it. But I enjoy the fact that the dogs that I have produced in their homes are very, I would say, non-reactive to novel experiences, because I spent a lot of time and a lot of effort with that litter, exposing them to things so that when they went into their life as an adult, they were not concerned about unusual experiences. And definitely, you could shoot a gun, you could shoot fireworks. Emma doesn't care about any of that kind of stuff. I've had other dogs in the past where if you shot a firework, they were going to freak out. I mean, they were going to freak out. And I always do advocate that you actually kennel your dogs or isolate your dogs during Independence Day in the United States. You are from India, you live in an apartment, should you buy a Dogo Argentino? I don't think so. Dogo Argentinos are powerful hunting dogs, and they need a lot of room and a lot of exercise. I don't think they're great apartment dogs. You would have to spend so much of your life trying to make your life fit what is good for the Dogo Argentino. I just don't know why anybody would willfully do that. I personally would go for a different dog because they're genetically reactive to predators. And in India, I know there is a feral dog population that can be problematic. So that just seems like a recipe to get into a lot of dog fights. I wouldn't personally advocate for an apartment dweller to have them. It depends on what type of dog you're looking for. If you're looking for a guardian dog that is better with small spaces, I personally think that if you're just looking for something that's appears to be intimidating, Great Danes are huge dogs, and they're actually fine with small spaces. They don't mind at all. They do still need to be walked like any dog, but they're really, really good dogs, and they look intimidating because they're huge. A Great Dane could be 150 pounds. It's a big dog. Anyway, back to genetics. So one of the things I like about raising puppies is that you can really affect the outcome. And the more litters I've raised, the more profound I believe the first 10 weeks of life of a Dogo Argentino or any dog really is in terms of what you will get adult-wise. Go back to work. I appreciate your well wishes for Zeus. Thank you. So I love that. I love the ability to actually make a dog stable so that when it goes into its new home, it doesn't have a lot of the problems that a lot of dogs that are not properly socialized do. And I've gotten dogs over the years. I'm a second generation dog owner, dog trainer, dog breeder, dog enthusiast, dog competitor. And when I was very young, my mom did her breed of dogs, and we've had lots of different breeds over the years. We started with Great Danes, we went into Doberman Pinschers, we've had a lot of different breeds. She eventually got into very small dogs when she was alive. She's passed on now. My heart dogs are big dogs. I just like big dogs. But what I find fascinating is how much you can affect the outcome of what that adult is going to be based on what you do when they're puppies. And so we spent so much time during early neurological stimulation and doing a lot of desensitization for novel experiences and noises and things like that. And if you wanted to call it black and white, every mistake I made, I can see in Emma, particularly because I actually did a journal that recorded my experiences and what age and what types of exercises we did, because I wanted it to be more scientific this time. I wanted to really nail down what it took to create a stable Dogo Argentino. And I can see every mistake I've made, but also I can see every victory. Like the fact that Emma does not at all care about fireworks, gunshots, sirens, flashing lights, big objects like trucks and things like that. She is not afraid of any of that stuff. As a matter of fact, she's got a go get 'em attitude. Rogue and her sister Jubilee, also not at all concerned. Now, one thing that I can see is passed on in the puppies that I've created there, and this is partially the Dogo Argentino breed, so partially it's genetic, but when they are into their family, they're into their family. So it's funny because Dogo Argentinos are very human oriented, and they really, really bond very, very strongly with their owners. And they, as all dogs, do not know how big they are or how strong they are. And that is genetically something that dogs pass on. That's why Chihuahuas end up getting killed so often, because they don't know that they're small dogs. Dogs don't actually naturally know what their size is, because it's not a benefit in the wild for them to be afraid or overconfident because they're either very small or very big. So you can teach a dog its size and you can teach it body awareness, but there's a whole lot of exercises you have to do that. And most dogs off the bat, they just don't know. So, if you take a dog like Jubilee, or you take her sister Rogue, or you take Emma, they think they're lap dogs. I mean, legitimate lap dogs. They think that they're tiny dogs and they just get right up in your face. And of course, their family has allowed that, just as I allow it, because I love having a big dog lay against me. That's just that's my jam. That's one of the reasons I like big dogs. Oh, thank you, Julio. I appreciate you. You are awesome. Thank you for your viewership. So, Emma, in terms of the success and the failure I've had in terms of creating the perfect Dogo Argentino, to my mind, which is different for every person because every person considers their dog and what they're looking for in a working dog to be different. To me, she is an ideal dog. She is driven, she is loyal, she's affectionate, she's fearless, she's brave, she's investigatory, she works out problems inside her head before she charges, in this case, the snake, what she thought was a snake. So I love that about her. To me, she's very close to the ideal dog. Now, no dog is perfect. And Emma, like any dog, has some physical and psychological flaws or faults. So, Big Joe, if your dog, Shiloh, or perhaps you're pronouncing it Chloe, is afraid of a lot of things, you can help that out by doing desensitization every single day. Now, the downside to desensitization every single day with a Dogo Argentino or any dog is if you miss the periods where socialization truly takes place, which is under 12 weeks of age, you can help mitigate it, but you can never go back in time and fix that 100%. In other words, she'll probably always be a little bit scared of things, but you can make that vastly better based on training. So you definitely want to train very consistently to try to get the dog not to be afraid of things. My experience with Dogo Argentinos is it seems like a lot of breeders don't family raise, meaning that they don't put them in the middle of the house. And there's a lot of reasons why you would perhaps not want to do that as a breeder, but none of them are really great reasons. It's inconvenient to have a litter in the middle of your living room. Obviously, there's a lot of waste involved in a litter of 10 puppies in the middle of your living room. Perhaps you don't have the right floor covering. Those are good reasons to want to avoid it, but the positives to raising in a house, rather than in a garage or in a exterior structure is that those puppies are going to be exposed from birth until they go to their new home with a lot of different noises that should be normal for a puppy. Like Emma doesn't care about the vacuum cleaner. Emma doesn't care about the lawnmower. Emma's a little dumb about it, to be honest. She'll lay right in front of the lawnmower and be like, I'm here now. I'm like, you can't be there now. And she's like, I'm here now. And I'm like, get out of the way. Oh my goodness. There's nothing so funny as a dog who's like, oh, are you walking this way? Let me go ahead and lay right here. Oh, am I in your way? But I'm just doing this cute thing right here. I'm like, oh, good Lord. So I think that raising Dogo Argentino puppies in the house is best because of the socialization, because of the noises, because they get used to the hustle and bustle. I'm a person, I really like smoothies. I use a Vitamix blender all the time, and the Vitamix blender is incredibly loud. It is a serious piece of kitchen equipment, and she doesn't care about any of those things. Those noises, they mean nothing to her. I've had other dogs in the past that I didn't personally breed where if you expose them to a loud noise like a lawnmower or a vacuum cleaner or my Vitamix, they would have been like, I am the freak out of here. I am having nothing to do with this. This is scary. And that to me is a failure of the breeder to provide proper socialization and desensitization during those critical periods when that puppy's brain is developing. Because much like a human, if you want the dog to be even tempered, you have to expose it to varied stimulus and varied environments so that it has I don't really care response. And you can see that in Emma. So Emma's response to novel and new and loud and shocking, what would be shocking situations, to her, she just doesn't care at all. Now, of course, I did not breed her parents, Zeus or Zarina. And because I didn't breed her parents, their reaction to things is different because I didn't have it in my hand and what they came into the world. And that's why, I like breeding is I'm a control freak that way. I like producing dogs that are stable. I like producing dogs that are happy. I like producing dogs that are bonded to their humans. I like producing dogs that have what I call house manners. I don't need a puppy that's going to a pet home to have incredible manners like a professional working dog, but I do expect that puppy to have house manners. Now it's up to the new family whether they carry that training on, and any stimulus that isn't reinforced at least intermittently will extinguish over time. So my puppies, by the time they're 8 weeks, will sit for their dinner because I enjoy that. And there's a lot of benefit to making them polite and also making them focus that food comes from you, not from this bowl that sits in the floor where they don't have to do anything to earn their keep. I'm a big believer in dogs earning their keep. And one of the ways that I do that is by constant obedience drills. So, I don't know. I'm rambling at this point, but it is interesting to me to see the things that you can affect the outcome based on what you put into it. And with dogs, as I think with children, I don't personally have children, but I feel confident that what you get as an adult is affected by what you do as a child with that child. And so I think the same is with dogs. Now, dogs are not as psychologically complicated as humans, and that's not to say that they don't have emotions or feelings or they're not cognizant or intelligent creatures, because they are. But in terms of the number of shades of a particular emotion, I think of dogs as like the primary colors. They have fear, they have anger, they have jealousy. Now, do they have mixed emotions? I don't think as much. I think they're more emotionally simple. I agree. I really think that earning your keep is important, particularly with a willful dog like the Dogo Argentino. Dogo Argentinos are very trainable, but they are stubborn. And part of the reason that they're stubborn is because they were designed as a hunting dog that was going to take down a dangerous predator. You didn't want a dog that was going to give up immediately when the chances are in a life and death situation where they're with a predator, if they give up, they could be very seriously injured or killed. And that's where the bull terrier and their heritage really comes in. That stubbornness, that unwillingness to give up is what makes the Dogo Argentino such a fantastic hunting dog. And I love hunting my dogs, but there are no puma here and there are no boars, so we just hunt rabbits, which is better than nothing. And they will 100% catch, kill, and eat a rabbit live if they get the chance. No, I think dogos are very emotional. I think they're very sensitive dogs. And that's where the human bond, I think, comes into play. Now, one of the other breeds I'd like to own but don't own is a French Bulldog. And the reason I don't own any French Bulldogs is because French Bulldogs are not known to be super loyal. French Bulldogs are like social butterflies. If you look more interesting than me as the owner, that social little butterfly will float over there and be like, oh, you're my friend, and it has no concern. Dogos are really concerned. Dogos really want to be part of your group, and they really want to be in good standing. As a matter of fact, one of the interesting things about pack behavior is they take on group success and group failure, which is tied genetically to their ability to hunt as a group. And in a household situation, you will notice that if you have multiple dogs, that they do take on the success or failure of a pack in terms of how they are being treated by their owner. So if their owner is annoyed, the entire pack is like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. If the owner is happy, the entire pack is like, oh, yay, everything is good. So they feed off the emotions, and that's one of the hard things about having multiple dogos, or even multiple dogs in general, is that you have to be aware that it's very difficult to separate one member of the pack from the others and have the others not feed off the energy you're giving to that one. So what I mean by that is, like, let's imagine that your dog counter-surfed and stole something off the counter. And you're mad at that one dog because he knows better and he stole something off the counter, and let's say you caught him in the act. And I do think that's really important. Pro tip, do not retroactively punish a dog if you do not catch the dog in, wow. So Dan, if your dog is 26.5 inches in height, your female dog is already out of standard in terms of height. Right on the mark with weight, though. 85 pounds is a very good weight for a female. Anyway, so let's say that you've caught the animal in the act. You can discipline the animal. But if you come home to it, you really can't discipline the animal. Wow, and she's 10 months, so she is only 85% of her adult size and height. Dan, she's probably going to be out of standard. So the negative to an out of standard dog is that they tend to have more joint problems. They are more prone to hip dysplasia. They tend to have a shorter lifespan, and they tend not to have the same amount of stamina. So a lot of people in America have this illusion that bigger is better. This isn't a giant breed, so we shouldn't be trying to breed to out of standard size because it causes additional problems, but also because it makes it harder for the dog to actually do what it was designed to do in terms of hunting. So Dogo Argentinos were designed to hunt in very thick, low, dense underbrush. And if you have a dog that's out of standard, meaning it's bigger than it should be in height or weight, that dog has less good ability to work the underbrush because it's carrying more mass. So, like, take a basketball player, for example. Basketball players are unusually tall. A 7-foot tall basketball player, yes, he runs up and down the court, but he generally doesn't run marathons. Why? Because he can't carry the mass of that 7-foot tall body effectively over time for, 20 plus miles. He can't do it. And so that's why basketball players are not usually marathon runners. Sort of a very similar concept with Dogo Argentinos. Very, very large, very tall, very heavy Dogo Argentinos actually have to work much harder to propel their mass across uneven ground when hunting. And it just generally tends not to be very good in terms of stamina, because the way most hog hunts work is the first part is just pure cardio. They're trying to find the hog. They're trying to run under about that.